This podcast is brought to you by Hey Al Productions. The Bread and Better podcast acknowledges the Yagara people and the Turrbal people as the traditional custodians of Meanjin, the lands on which we record today. We pay our respects to the Yagara and Turrbal elders, past, present, and emerging.
Today's episode is brought to you by Over Acupuncture and Chinese Medicine. We offer acupuncture, cupping, and Chinese herbal medicine to support you back to better health no matter what season of life you're in. You can find out more information at overacupuncture.au. That's OVAACUPUNCTURE.au.
Did I say good? Did I get you to do it one more time?
Maybe just in case.
Okay, do it one more time. Go. Bread and Better podcast. Okay. Bread and Better podcast. I feel like I am. Bread and Better podcast. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the Bread and Better podcast, the podcast where we discuss all things women's health and the impact that we are having on the next generation. I'm one of your hosts, Tegan, and I am a personal trainer, sports nutritionist, and a chef. And I am Alex, your other host and the producer of this podcast. I own Hey Out Productions. I'm a writer and a mum of 3. So guys, in planning this show over the last few months, it has become abundantly clear to Tegan and I that we know a lot of really amazing women with very interesting stories, and we want to share all of them with you. So from now on, we are going to be bringing you a new story every month to entertain and inspire. And boy, am I excited for this first one. Today on the show, we are welcoming Jacinta. Jacinta and I met when I was working at F45, and she has become a client and a friend of mine since. A few years ago, when we were at an F45 social event, Jacinta just casually dropped into conversation that she has been a surrogate mother. Naturally, I had a million questions and I found the conversation so bloody interesting, and I'm sure you guys will too. I'm glad that she has agreed to come on and share her story with us on the podcast. Welcome, Jacinta.
Hi, guys.
So as you know, because you've listened to the podcast, we always start the episode by talking about the best thing that we ate in the last week. Are you ready? Are you prepared? Mm-hmm. You can go first.
Okay, so I am a bit of a, embarrassingly enough, TikTok fanatic. So I saw these chop salad things.
Oh, the sandwich?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had it on Crosscuts the other day and they were amazing. So I just did like lettuce, tomato, carrot, cucumber, salami. Salami is what makes it, ham, and then mixed it through with some light mayo and a bit of Dijon mustard and just mixed it up and put on Crosscuts, and it was amazing.
Yeah. On Crosscuts is a good idea. I've been talking about this with someone yesterday and I was like, just seems like more effort than making a regular sandwich.
I know, I thought that too.
But worth it.
Okay. For some reason the texture works really well, and it's just so much easier to eat than just having like a huge chunk of sandwich to try and chow down, but I don't know why.
I'm going to have to do one for my TikTok.
Yeah.
I think so.
I made a wrap the other day and I like cut up celery really fine because I didn't have any lettuce, and I mixed it with mayonnaise and had it with bacon and avocado and
that'd be
cheese.
good.
It was delicious.
I like celery.
I love celery.
Yeah, it's underrated.
Yes, and I feel like it's really divisive.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't like it when I was younger. Like I found the taste really strong and offensive. But now as an adult, I love it. Yeah.
It's delicious. It's so fresh as soon as you open the fridge, if you've got it, it just smells so good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, big fan.
Do you want to go?
I'll go.
Was yours celery?
Mine's celery, no. So we went to Ramona's the other night for...
Have you been?
Is that the Italian place?
Yeah.
I'm going next Wednesday.
Oh, very good.
This is so funny because everyone I've spoken to has either just been or is just going. They've got a really good marketing thing happening on the Facebook community group.
Yeah, right.
I think they're doing very well.
Oh, very good.
But yes, so we went there for our friend Ash's birthday dinner, and I had so you'll know if you listen to the podcast, I'm allergic to everything.
Yes. I'm sorry to hear.
It's all good. I had the gluten-free, dairy-free zucchini flowers. I was so excited because I have had them in the past, like before I had my allergies were really bad, and they were like my favorite thing. Oh. So as soon as I saw them on the menu, I was just so excited, and they make their own cashew cheese.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cashew cheese.
It's like a cashew curd. It was delicious. So good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to check
And
it out.
I had a wardrobe malfunction.
You did, which
did
led
you
to
do?
an interesting debate.
Actually, yeah, a lot of people voted on the poll.
I've been thinking about it all week because I've worn bodysuits
Do you
all
wear
week.
bodysuits?
No, I don't think.
Okay.
If you wore a bodysuit, the ones that like clip
Have the
up
buttons.
down the bottom, like the ones from Kukai, would you wear underwear under them?
Oh, I think I have to wear underwear regardless on if I'm wearing anything.
Really?
Yeah.
See, my theory is,
They're like togs.
yeah, they're like togs. Like it would be like putting underwear under togs.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
But my buttons malfunctioned and I was wearing a very short skirt and then I was practically nude. I would turn to have a conversation with someone and I'd feel it go bing, bing. I also ate a lot of burrata. Let's wrap up the segment.
You weigh your body weight in burrata.
Yeah, I did. The banquet is very generous.
Okay.
Very.
I feel like I got a whole
huge.
burrata basically to myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there was still more burrata getting around the table.
Yeah.
I was more cheese than woman. So let's start at the very start. Let's hear about you and your family and how you came to be a surrogate for someone else.
Okay. So I've got 2 children. I've got Max, who is turning 11, and Mia, who is turning 9. So after I had Mia, I had, it was probably about 6 months after I had her, I had a friend contact me and say, would you be interested in being a surrogate? She had a few health issues. And I was like, at the time going, oh, you know what? I had pretty good pregnancies for both of them. Yeah, sure, why not? Let's give it a go. So I had a chat to my husband about it and he's like, well, let's just meet them because I don't know them from bar of soap. And I'm like, yeah, that's totally fair.
Did they contact you specifically or did they contact a few people?
They contacted everyone on their Facebook list, so all their friends and family. And because surrogacy back then, this was 5 years ago, you could not advertise publicly. So you had to personally message every single person. And then so she messaged everyone on her Facebook list, on his Facebook list, and then they went back through and rechecked to make sure they got everyone. And I was one of like 12 people that they missed. And so they had a whole bunch of people who replied and said, sorry, not right now, which is totally fair. Some was saying
It's not like you're picking up someone's mouth.
I know, exactly. So it's very an unusual request. And so when she messaged me, and I think it was New Year's Day, 2016, I think it was. And I was like, yep, that sounds very interesting. Let's have a chat. And so we met them, I think it was around, I want to say Australian Open around that time. So they live in Victoria. So we went down, met them in person, kids met them and everything. It was all very lovely. And then we came away and we thought, okay, well, we could give this a shot. But we still had a lot of hoops to jump through. So with surrogacy, you've got a traditional surrogacy or you've got a gestational surrogacy. So traditional means that as a surrogate, you can use your own eggs and then you'll be inseminated with the husband's sperm. That's a traditional.
His sperm.
Correct. Yeah. That's a traditional. What I did was called a gestational surrogacy. So her eggs or a donor egg and his sperm.
Yeah.
And then inserted into me.
So that's all done via IVF.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they hadn't gone down that route yet. So they were just basically looking to see anyone who would be interested in being a surrogate. So they hadn't started the process of egg retrievals or sperm or anything like that yet.
Can I butt in with another question?
Go for it.
I don't know if you can speak on this. So had they been trying to have a baby for a long time? Had they gone down the IVF route themselves yet?
No, purely because she had medical conditions which ruled out
have a pregnancy.
Yes.
Got you.
Yeah. So they knew from very early on that it was either surrogacy or adoption. So
yeah.
And so they were fully aware that was where they would have to go. And, they kind of looked into that sort of process, but obviously trying surrogacy first because they wanted to have their own child and their own genes and so forth. So that was completely understandable.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. So you went down and met them in Victoria.
Met them in Victoria. It was all great, very lovely. So then we had to start the process of them starting the egg retrieval. And so she had to come off her medication to be able to do that. And I know that took a massive toll on her body. So they went through the IVF process, but at the same time, we also had to go through counselling. Yeah. So there's a lot of jumps and hoops and stuff that you go through for Victorian surrogacy. So every state has their own surrogacy laws.
Yeah.
So you have to go by wherever the intended parents live. So it's not where the surrogate lives. Obviously, I live in Brisbane, so it's not, we don't go by Queensland laws. We didn't, purely because they lived in Victoria.
Yeah.
So we had to go by their laws. I know some states are much stricter than others at the time when we did it, which was 5 years ago. So preface that everything has changed since then. So if you are looking into it, I would highly advise doing some more research. Yeah. So at the time, we had to go through various rounds of counselling. So that included counselling individually for myself, for my husband, as a couple, and then as the four of us as well. So you have to go through those steps before you're able to start any kind of transfer. So while we're going through all those counselling sessions, we also had to fly down for them because they were in Victoria. So there was a lot of work in terms of travelling away from the kids and stuff. So it's a lot of time away from your own family. So that's something to be aware of if you do consider it.
So I'm just like in awe that you've just flown down for these counselling sessions.
It's a big sacrifice.
It is a big
Huge
sacrifice. Yes.
Did they have anybody else respond with any interest, or were you the only one? Do you know?
I think I was the only one who said pretty much that I was interested from the get-go. Some were saying, maybe in a few years' time once I finish my family, which is fair as well.
Yeah,
definitely.
Because they want you to be of sound mind to make sure that you have no desire to want to keep the baby. If you haven't finished having children, there's some states that you have to have had a child before you even consider. I'm not sure about Queensland laws, but I know that at the time with Victoria, you had to finish having your family before you considered.
Which makes sense.
Yes, yeah.
What if you went through all the counselling of sound mind, said you didn't want to keep the baby, and then you decided that you did want to keep the baby?
Yes, and I have heard stories of that happening, which was quite horrific.
I've heard of that happening too in Sydney.
So what happens in that situation?
I can't remember the outcome, but it got very messy because there's nothing really legally in place. You can get legal advice, but there's nothing that is in place for you to hand over the child and for them to accept the child. They can turn around and say, I don't want the child.
Yeah, and I think it's different as well, right? Like if you're using someone's eggs and someone else's sperm, then I think that's different as well from if it's a traditional surrogacy. The legalities are really different because that's your egg.
Yeah.
So I think it's a minefield.
It's a massive minefield. So gestational for us worked far better purely because I knew personally as like a mental thing that this is not my child.
Yeah.
There is no part of this child that is part of me apart from I always say it's like baking a cake. I'm baking the cake and I'm handing it over at the end of it.
Yeah.
And so after we did all the counselling stuff, we also had to go see our own personal lawyers. So we had a lawyer representing us and they had a lawyer representing them. In the counselling sessions, they also talk about, like, there's a lot of hard questions that they ask, like if the child comes out with any kind of disability, at what point do you consider potentially, stopping the pregnancy or anything like that? That's something to consider, which is, not easy to talk about at all. So they have to put that into consideration for all parties as to how that comes about. So after we did all the counselling sessions, then we started the IVF process. So they had egg retrieval, they had embryos on ice, which was perfect and great. In Victoria, after we had done all the counselling sessions and all the legal advice, we had to go in front of a panel of doctors to state our case as to why we want to do it. And every single surrogacy case had to be presented in front of this board in Victoria. Again, other states are different.
Yeah.
So the four of us had to go up with like an oral report essentially, and they question us as to whether or not, why we're doing it, and, making sure that all the steps are all correct. And so they give you the green light, or they say, no, you need to continue, more counselling or more anything else. And they could say, no, not yet.
Yeah.
So
was there a wait for that as well? Like, did you?
Yes. Yeah. So they meet up once every month in Victoria. And so you had to make sure you got in and got all your stuff ready to go before you went in front of the panel.
Yeah.
Which was quite daunting. I think it was about five doctors in there listening to every case and stuff. So
you guys are like preparing a PowerPoint presentation about why you want to have a baby as four of you.
That's right. So we came away, and I remember once they gave us the green light, it was just like we were all ecstatic. We took a photo out the front of the courthouse and we're like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Yeah. So that was a big hoop to jump through. So that was, I think it was late 2016 when we got the approval. I think it was November.
So that's almost a year.
Almost a year from initial contact.
Before you even start there.
Before any medical stuff was happening with me.
Wow.
And so after we did that, then we started looking at, my cycles. So we had to track my cycles. Every time that we kind of had a nice gap or something that we could do, I had to inject myself to make my uterus all cushiony and ready to take the transfer. Every transfer had to go down to Victoria and then do the transfer, which was only, I can't remember, maybe 20 to 40 minutes or something like that, which was really quick and it was quite straightforward, very easy. And then afterwards came back to Brisbane and then I'd have to insert pessaries. So these pessaries are like tampon shaped and they're like waxy and they basically you have to insert it and lie down for 45 to an hour afterwards every night to make sure that the embryo stayed, essentially.
Really?
So yeah, and so we did, the first round didn't take, the second round didn't take, and the third round didn't take. So by then we were getting quite disheartened. So then after the third round, we were like, oh gosh, okay, do we keep going or do we not? And then we thought maybe there's something wrong with me. So we thought, okay, well, let's just get me checked out. So did a whole bunch of internal tests, did a lot of blood tests and stuff to make sure I was okay to be able to carry. I was fine. There was nothing wrong. It was just not timing right. Yeah, wasn't quite right. So then when we went down for the fourth time, they did it with an ultrasound so you could actually see the needle going in and everything. So it was, I don't know if that made it work or not, but it worked. I got the phone call about 4 or 5 weeks later to say, yes, it worked because I was getting blood tests and like I couldn't rely on pregnancy tests because it wasn't reliable enough. So I had to go in and get my, is it HCG?
HCG
levels? Yeah. So make sure they were all rising and going the right direction. So then when we got the phone call to say, yes, it's a viable pregnancy, it was just, it was crazy.
Incredible.
It was.
And did the doctor call you or did
the doctor called me, yeah. I still remember sitting in the restaurant. I was having lunch by myself. I don't think I was expecting the call, but I kind of knew it was around that time.
Yeah.
And I remember just getting the phone call and I just sat there with my meal and just being like, holy shit, it's happening.
This is happening.
Yeah.
This is happening.
Wow. So can I just ask timeline-wise, so how long is it now between the beginning of 2016 and...
Beginning of 2016. So it would have been late 2017.
So that's 2 years of all of this huge process for all 4 of you.
Yep.
I can't imagine how much, like that's a massive sacrifice for you.
Yeah.
But just thinking as well of the intended parents, that's such a long time that you're waiting for your baby.
It was a big roller coaster
that's
ride.
A huge, yeah.
And they're the most beautiful couple. They're so pragmatic. They're not helicopter intended parents. Like I've heard stories where some intended parents literally want to know every food that you're putting into your body.
Yeah.
These guys were amazing. It was just like I'd call and be like, oh, hey, I'm about to go get a scan done. You're welcome to come along, or I can video call you or anything like that. The birth was very, very sentimental. It was, I remember we had it all booked in, ready to go because I wanted to be induced with my daughter. I was induced because my waters broke 2 days prior.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be induced. I wanted them to be there and to not have any concerns or worries about having to fly up emergency or anything like that.
You wanted to have a bit of certainty about when it was happening.
Exactly, yeah. So I remember that morning, the intended father was a bit unwell, and so he was panicking. He's like, I can't be in the room. Like, I'm gonna make everyone sick. And it wasn't COVID because COVID wasn't around then. And so I said, you know what? I think we'll be totally fine. I want you in this room.
Has he got like a head cold or something?
Probably. It was something. It was probably something that was
so
minor that I was like, you know what? I'm totally fine with you being in the room.
Yeah.
So he came and everyone always asked me this question, did they see it all? I'm like, yes, they saw everything.
Yeah.
And I was totally fine with that because I've had 2 children.
Yeah.
Everyone's seen everything. I didn't have any qualms.
Yeah.
And such a special moment.
Exactly. So the intended mother, she was so beautiful. She held my hand through the whole process. My midwife wasn't amazing, but anyway, she did a few errors in the room and she kind of crossed the the line of like sanitization or something. I don't really know, but when it came to getting the epidural, she kind of crossed the line, and then the anaesthetist had to re-clean everything and get new stuff out. And the intended mother's like, are you kidding me? Anyway, it was just
stressful.
It was a bit stressful,
Yeah.
but anyway.
Because an epidural is stressful enough.
Exactly.
You don't
It's not
need-
enjoyable to
it's
have someone go, hang on, let me just clean everything up
let me
and
just
start again.
Oh my God. It's
And
insane.
was your husband in the room too?
Yes, he was there. Yes,
Wow.
he was there for the
You
whole
had a full
time.
house.
I had a full house.
That's
yes,
so special.
And
that
then,
would have been amazing if you were a midwife. Like, wouldn't you have embraced that experience?
Absolutely,
That
you'd
would be
think
a
that.
rare,
So rare.
thing to
Yeah.
be. One of my very close friends is a midwife, and I can just imagine
Yeah.
that would be something she would just die to be in the room for.
Yeah, it was very, very moving. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember the epidural. I still remember the epidural going in, and my like right leg flung out.
Yes.
And then they're like, okay, we can't get this. Let's try again. And then my left leg flung out.
Yeah. Oh my
And then-
God. Yeah.
And I'm getting PTSD from the
Oh,
sound.
I know. Oh, that happened. Like, they missed 6 times putting my epidural in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, sorry to hijack, but like that, the visceral memory of you saying your leg flung, because like I feel like after you've had a baby, like
This is not making any sense to
I know.
me.
Well, I feel like after you've gone through it, you block it all out because you've got this
Absolutely.
baby, and so you don't remember things
beautiful.
until
It's
someone's
perfect.
like, my leg flung out. I'm like, oh my God, because I had 3 epidurals, and the first time my mum, so Kev was about to pass out, and my
Oh,
mum's
no.
like, I have to leave the room. I can't look at Kev. It's too hard. And I'm like, excuse me.
Guys,
What about me?
sorry that this is hard for you.
And Kev was like, oh, it's just really traumatic to watch. And I'm like, how do you think I feel? Like, it's terrifying. And like beforehand, they go through all the like, you could be paralyzed. Like this could happen, blah, blah,
Yes.
blah.
Yes. So the third time it worked, and
Yeah.
then it's weird. It's like it's obviously a nerve blocker, so it's
Yeah.
meant to stop everything from waist down, feeling anything, and it's not very comfortable when you first get it, but
No.
once it does work, it's beautiful.
Isn't it?
It's so amazing.
It's the best thing in the whole world.
Just got to get through that first pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I was in labour for a few hours, and then I can't remember the exact time that he was born, but I just remember the moment that he was coming out, he was crowning, everyone was down that end watching, my husband was up my end holding my hand, and then the whole room just went quiet, and he came out, and then a few seconds later, it was just screaming, crying, and
Which is the best sound
which
in
is
the
the best
world.
sound, absolutely.
Yeah, that
absolutely.
moment between waiting
Yes,
for them
yeah.
to cry is the scariest few
Yes.
seconds.
My son wasn't breathing, so that was
Yeah.
amazing to hear that. So yeah, it was very moving and it was incredible. And so we passed him straight onto them, and they did the first hold and everything. I expressed a bit of colostrum, that's the one. We decided that I wouldn't breastfeed, just purely because just to have that separation.
Yeah.
I didn't pump either, so I just gave the colostrum, and that was it. And then after that, I remember after all that happening, I said to my husband, I'm like, I think I'd chowed down an apple before I started pushing. And then after that, I was like, oh God, I'm going to be sick. And Matt had my husband had gone out of the room, and the intended father came over to me. He's like, you're right. I'm like, I need a spew bag, and just threw up everything.
Oh my God.
The doctor did say that like your body's basically run a marathon, and it's just so much for you to handle all this. So I was like, okay, that's cool. I got through it, and it's all good. And my husband came back in the room. He's like, what did I miss? I'm like, I just threw up. He's like, I'm glad I missed that.
He's like, thank God. Wow.
Yeah. So then after that, they went to their room, and we had a room next door to them. And then so I could rest, and they could have the baby and hang out and stuff. And then about 2 days later, they flew back to Victoria and started their new life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So on the birth certificate, initially it was me set down as a birth mother and my husband as a birth father. But after, I think it's up to after 28 days, up to 6 months, that's when they have to change it's called a parentage order. So on the birth certificate, it gets changed over to their names, but they have to present the baby, present everything, all the documentation, all the birth certificate, and for the courthouse to change it over to their names.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, that's so interesting that like your husband goes on as the birth father.
Yeah.
correct. Even though he's literally
Like
got nothing
genetically
to do
got
with it.
no.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I mean, I'm sure he did plenty.
Yeah.
But genetically.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
So interesting.
And was that at a private hospital? Is that what, or do public hospitals do that?
Publics do, yep. Wow. I did in the public hospital.
Yep.
We figured public was fine because I had done both
I've
public with both my kids.
I can't speak highly enough.
Yeah, so I had a great time. There was no issues or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think also because I had cancer, there was a few issues with trying to work out health insurance as well.
Yeah.
So we decided not to bother with that in terms of pregnancy because I was happy to go with the public system.
Premiums.
Yeah, no, they weren't going to cover me.
They weren't going to cover you.
Yeah, so
that's a whole nother story.
There's a few,
yeah. I was about to say, sorry, I didn't know. Yeah, just drop that. My goodness.
So, yeah, there was a few kind of hoops and jumps and stuff that we had to go through to be able to get the private health insurance sorted, and we just thought, it wasn't worth it. Yeah, we were happy with the public system. So.
Yeah.
After all that, it was, such a beautiful process. My husband did suffer a bit of anxiety afterwards, and it wasn't just because of the surrogacy, like that did contribute. He also, in a 5-month span of after having the baby, we lost our dog of like 6 years. We moved house. He won a bunch of awards, and it was just all these things just all happened at once. And also, I think there was a big fear of potentially losing me during the birth as well because I had cancer prior.
Yeah.
So that kind of brought on a bit of anxiety for him. And at the time, we didn't know that it was anxiety through the process of surrogacy.
Yeah.
It was only until afterwards where we were trying to work out what was happening. He definitely sought help, and that was amazing. And we've come through the other end now.
Yeah.
Certainly, he still has triggers and still has, anxiety here and there, but we are working on it and working towards getting him better and stuff. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
After the birth, did you find that you had any?
I didn't. I think when I first started this whole process, it was very much, if anyone said to me, oh my God, you're pregnant, congratulations, I would straight off and nip it in the bud and say, no, it's not mine. It's not mine. Like, don't congratulate me. Congratulate the intended parents. Like, it's all their baby. I'm literally just the segue to them starting a family. So it was in my mind, there was no kind of
There wasn't an attachment.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
That would have been a lot of interesting conversations. Like, obviously people see you and you're visibly pregnant. Did you get any negative feedback or anybody say really inappropriate things to you, or do you find everyone was pretty good?
Everyone was pretty good. I did have someone say, why would you do that?
Oh, good.
And I was like,
because I'm an amazing
totally
human being. It's the most generous thing that you could ever do for another person.
But anyway, everyone has their own thoughts and opinions and stuff, which is totally fair.
Did you put up like a Facebook post or anything to let people know what you were doing?
Yes, I did, because the intended parents didn't want everyone to know about it at the time, which was totally fair.
Yeah.
I just took a photo of my belly and just said, I'm pregnant again, not mine, also not Kim Kardashian's.
I love that.
Yeah.
But you're giving a little hint towards what's going on.
Correct. Yeah.
Should we just launch in with all of our questions?
No, go for it.
Yeah.
Question away.
Okay.
Question time.
When you were pregnant, how did that go with your eating and the way you lived your life? Like, did that change anything for you? And was it different from when you were pregnant with your own kids? Did you feel more pressure?
No, I think after I had cancer, so I had cancer between my two kids.
Yeah.
And so after I had that, I quit a lot of stuff. So I was relatively healthy then anyway.
Yeah.
So jumping into this, I didn't change too much in terms of my eating habits. I cut out coffee. I didn't have alcohol. I was pretty like, that was standard for me.
The rules anyway.
Yeah. And it wasn't too hard to change that. Obviously, looking after two young children while pregnant was pretty exhausting.
Challenging.
In itself. But no, I didn't really change any of my eating habits, and my body took to the pregnancy really well. I'm sorry, I know you had great difficulties with yours. But I would only. Like, I reckon if I had horrible pregnancies, it's not something that I would have
Considered.
Even considered.
So you obviously quite enjoy being pregnant.
Oh, I loved being pregnant.
Wow.
I sucked at the baby stage.
I'm like the polar opposite.
A lot of people are.
Pregnancy bit is horrific. I was fine with the labours.
Yeah.
Baby stuff fine. Pregnant, oh my God.
Horrific, yeah.
Awful. Oh, wow. And I feel like that would make it, I don't want to say easier, because I just think that it's the most incredible. I can't even wrap my head around doing that for someone else. But I feel like if you've had easier pregnancies, that might make you more inclined
Definitely.
to want to do it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah. And because I had one boy, one girl,
Yeah.
I kind of knew that, whatever gender was fine for me pregnancy-wise.
Yeah,
so.
because you weren't going to be like, oh, it's a girl. I don't have a girl. I've always wanted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And I have heard stories of people having like multiple boys and then end up having a surrogate girl, and you're like, oh gosh, now what? And like kind of wishing that you had a girl instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
There's so many things I feel like that could.
So many layers to it.
So many layers. And did the counselling continue throughout the pregnancy, or did that stop before
It stopped, and it was entirely up to us if we wanted to continue. It was certainly an open door, if we needed it. And at the time, I didn't think we needed it. I was of sound mind.
Yeah.
My husband was doing very well as well. It was only afterwards did we realise that something was
Well, you
up.
never know how you're going to react to something. That's such an unusual experience. Like you cannot predict how you're going to feel afterwards.
Yeah.
And I find with a lot of mental health stuff, you don't realize until later on.
Yeah.
Like you don't, when you're in the situation, you think, oh, everything's fine. Then you look back in hindsight and you see, okay, well, yeah, that was, that was a contributing factor amongst all the other things that was going on in a really overwhelming time.
Yes. Yeah.
How does it work financially? Like what do they pay for? What do you
That was
pay
my
for?
next question too. I was like, did they pay for the flights?
That was like the most common question that we got.
Yeah. Okay. So again, preface that was 5 years ago. Things may have changed now, but they covered everything. So they covered my flights, all the appointments with the doctors, with the psychologists, with the lawyers. All of that was all covered. Anything that I had to do at the hospital was all covered. I believe they're allowed. I didn't need it because I had all my maternity bras and clothes and stuff, but they could cover a part of that because that's obviously in addition to to what your body normally wears.
Yeah.
So I had all that anyway, so I didn't need that. It may have changed now, but back then it was completely altruistic. I'm not allowed to be paid a cent, otherwise it was illegal to be paid in Australia. But
Because
again,
people will go and do it for money.
correct. In America,
a lot of people do
literally
it for money,
a lot of women, they are literally just baby makers. Like they just pump out baby after baby after baby, and they just earn money that way. Australia, although I feel like in the last couple of years I have stopped following a lot of surrogacy stuff since birth.
Yeah.
But I do believe that they are allowed to pay a percentage of your wage or something. I'm not entirely sure.
like if you can't work
Correct.
due to the pregnancy, that would make sense.
Yeah.
That seems fair.
But again, they would need to look into that.
Yeah.
Did you get mat leave?
So I would have, however, I was a freelance producer, so at the time I just kind of took time off for myself, and so I didn't have to ask for time off.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a question about whether, which you may not know the answer to, if you were to be a surrogate and get paid mat leave from the government, are you still entitled to that after period if you don't have the baby? Don't know the answer.
I can't. I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
I feel like that mat leave's so hard to get from the government in the first place. I feel like
they'll probably try and stop. I don't know. I don't know.
We should look into that.
Yeah, we should. We'll find the answer.
Yeah, that government mat leave, especially if you're a freelancer, that's hard to get. Like I went through it with Magnolia, and you have to fill out so many different forms and track your hours and blah blah blah. So it's not easy anyway.
Yeah,
I reckon they'd make it really difficult.
Yeah.
So I think you've touched on it already, but what is your relationship like now with the intended parents and the surrogate baby?
So he's turning 5 this year.
Wow.
So he's starting school, which is just
cool.
mind-blowing for me. So we still keep in touch. We caught up with them last year when we went down to Victoria, and my kids got to see them. They came up, it would have been last year, and we went out for lunch, and then the next day my daughter's appendix almost burst. So I remember that day. But we do keep in touch quite often. They send me photos and stuff of what he's been up to, and he's just, divine.
Yeah. How did your kids feel through the process? Like how did you talk to them about it?
Explain it to them?
I called him their belly brother. So,
Oh,
yeah.
That's cute.
that's so cute.
Me.
So my daughter sometimes tells people that she's got two brothers, and I have to remind her that one's a belly brother and one's your biological brother. So we did read quite a few baby books after he was born, because they had a lot of questions. My daughter she would have been 3 at the time, and she was very curious about where babies come from. So we read lots and lots of books and stuff just so that they could understand how the process worked. And they get it. They understand.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, but they treat him like he's a friend.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And have the intended parents explained the situation to him yet? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think maybe not yet, just because
he's so young.
Yeah, that would be really hard to wrap your head around.
And again, that's one of the questions that the counselling asks. It's at what point do you plan to tell the child? Do you plan to meet each other down the track, or is it like a once the baby's out, you cut ties sort of thing?
Yeah.
So there's lots of stuff that they ask you and question, and very confronting stuff as well. So.
Yeah.
I guess they have to consider like every possible scenario and try and get a gauge on how the 4 of you are going to react in every possible scenario to see if it's going to be a healthy choice.
Correct.
For everyone. Yeah. So interesting. But that's so nice that you have an ongoing relationship with them.
Yeah. It's really lovely.
When they eventually explain, they intend to, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so,
when they eventually explain it and he's older and we'll meet you.
I'm the special auntie.
Yeah. Very, very special. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So when you first told Matt, your husband, that you had got this message and that you were pretty interested, what was his reaction?
I think he's like, what the fuck? I have some pretty harebrained ideas. So
he's probably pretty used to you by this point.
He is a little bit, yeah. I think at the time he was on board and very encouraging, but he's very pragmatic. He doesn't take any risks. He likes to plan everything ahead and make sure that nothing is going to cause issues down the track, sort of thing, which I'm so thankful for, because I would have just dived straight in and done it straight away. So
it sounds like you guys are a perfect team.
Yeah.
Sounds like you and Kev.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking, this is like very much
It is. And I know Matt as well. And it's,
creative.
So, exactly. So we've been together since we've known each other since high school, so we're about 15 when we first met, and we married. Now it's 11 years last year. So we've been together for quite some time.
Been married for 11 years too.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. So I feel like he knows me better than I know myself. So he knew that, like, if it's something that I stick my head to, I kind of have to do it.
Yeah.
And it takes a bit to be talked out of it. So
when
I was pretty keen to do it, I kind of talked to him about it. He's like, let's just meet them, make sure that,
just like slow down.
Yeah, exactly.
Back to the start.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're online shopping for maternity bras.
Yeah, that's right.
That's so my personality too. Like, I decide I want to do something and I want it done yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like you're the dream team to do this. Like,
you need that. I think that's nice in a relationship, to have someone that is really pragmatic, and then, they bring you back to the sensible side, but then your spontaneity gets them
out of their comfort
zone as well.
Very much out of his comfort zone. Did you feel like you bonded with the baby, or you just kind of, you felt that whole, this isn't my baby the whole way through?
No, I didn't bond at all. I made a very conscious effort not to, knowing that I already had 2 wonderful children that, rely on me. So there was no chance of me holding on to this baby. Plus, I knew that, it didn't look anything like my children.
Yeah.
So that was easy to kind of remove myself from that.
Yeah.
But there was no, he's absolutely amazing, and I was so excited to meet him when he came out, but there was no desire for me to steal him.
Yeah, you weren't going to run away.
So very different experience, like with your emotions, being pregnant with your kids. Yeah.
Yes, big difference.
I think it's probably really healthy to be able to compartmentalize that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You wouldn't be able to do it. You wouldn't be able to do it if you
that's
didn't
right.
have that ability.
That's right. Yeah, and they do. Yeah, a lot of the psych questions are about that, and making sure that you are of sound mind, ready to hand the baby over at the end, because that's basically the ultimate goal.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't want to change the goalpost halfway through, and your brain goes, oh wait, no, this is mine. Like, I want to hold on to it.
Yeah,
so they need to be very sure and very clear that this is what you want to do. We went to quite a few this is pre-COVID, quite a few surrogacy conferences. And so that's when a lot of surrogates and intended parents come over from various places around the world to talk about their stories. So we went to a couple of those before we started the transfer so that we could hear stories, ask questions and stuff. I went to a surrogacy breakfast one time and I met a beautiful intended mother who was expecting her first child. Unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years ago from whatever she was suffering to not be able to have children. So that was quite sad and confronting. Yeah. But yeah, there's some incredible stories. There was one lady who didn't have children of her own, but she just wanted to be pregnant.
Yeah.
So she carried for another couple.
Incredible.
The thought of being pregnant is more appealing to me than having the baby.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, that's very interesting. I think that it's really amazing that the government has all of this in place, like as much as it sounds like quite a painful process to go through and all the waiting and everything like that, like you can see why it's so necessary. And that's something that I didn't realize. Like I thought a lot of the surrogacy thing was kind of through the private sector. So I think that makes it more accessible to people because obviously it's a huge cost to the intended parents. And it sounds like these intended parents were prepared to go down this path because they were aware that they wouldn't be able to carry kids on their own. So they were able to save and everything like that. But I imagine for some people,
Yeah, that's right.
that would make it at
Absolutely.
least.
And especially if you do look overseas, I think at the time America was like a minimum 120 grand or something.
Wow.
So I don't know how much it is now. Again, at the time, I want to say maybe it was India or maybe it was Vietnam that were shutting their doors to surrogacy. So the windows of surrogacy were closing in on a lot of intended parents at the time. So wherever they could find a surrogate was they would just be so thankful and hopeful.
Yeah, I cannot imagine how grateful they must feel to you. I can't. That would be.
Oh, they send me the most beautiful messages and it makes me tear up all the
There's
time.
nothing you could ever do to thank someone for doing that. I just cannot imagine. I don't think that there's a more selfless thing that you could do for someone. It's incredible.
Well, it's funny. See, I could do this, but I couldn't donate my eggs. That's something that me personally I couldn't do. I couldn't imagine having another mini-me running around. Poor them.
Well, have you listened to the episode with Julia?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so you need to go and listen because she froze her eggs before she met Michael and had their kids.
Right.
And now she is considering donating her eggs.
Wow.
So she had a lot of questions that she had written in because she was so curious about your experience and she's trying to make those decisions at the moment about whether she does that. And you know what? It's so personal.
So do you think you'd do it again? That was what, 3 years of your life?
2.5 all up. Yeah. So it was, he was born in May 2018. I have been asked that question. I think for me physically, I probably couldn't do it again. Yeah. It was just a big toll on my body. And I wouldn't have any more kids regardless. So that was.
Let me reframe it. If you physically not having more kids, if you would to repeat the whole experience, would you do it again?
Yes, I would.
Yeah. I
would, yes. It obviously did take a lot of mental toll on my husband, so that was where we would have to kind of readjust of how we handle that. But for me, yes, I loved it. I enjoyed the whole experience. It was amazing. Just
That's
I can't
incredible.
even put it into words. I just want people to know that surrogacy isn't just 9 months of carrying a child and handing it over. Like, it is a huge commitment. It is a lot of mental and physical space that it takes up in your life. So you need to be prepared to handle that, to have your family be, ready for it, understanding. There's going to be days where you just feel like absolute shit and you're still carrying someone else's child, but do not be resentful because what you're doing is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It is very trying on relationships. I do know some couples who have fallen apart through surrogacy. So having that good foundation with your partner, having that open lines of communication is so important. Making sure that everyone is on board and agreeing with all the decisions, like how many times you're going to try the transfers, making sure that, the lines of, okay, this cost is going to be covered and this is going to be covered, that sort of thing is so crucial to go through this sort of process.
Yeah, and open communication on absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Did you have a limit on how many times you were going to try with the IVF?
After the third time, it was quite disheartening.
Yeah.
We were like, oh gosh, do we go again? Do we try again? And we kind of said, well, maybe 5 would be the limit.
Yeah.
Just because if it wasn't working by then, I think my body would just be saying, no.
And that's a huge mental toll on both parties as well, and like physical on you as well. That would have been a really challenging part of the process.
Every transfer, it was like the injections at the beginning, then flying down for the transfer, and then the pessaries for like a good month afterwards.
Yeah.
And then just waiting and waiting and waiting. So it is pretty exhausting.
Oh, absolutely.
The last question that we had on here was, do you have any advice for anyone that is considering seeking or being a surrogate, or anything else that you want to add? I think we've kind of touched on everything.
My advice for anyone who's looking into it is to seek advice from any kind of legal services that specialise in surrogacy. Also doing a lot of investigation about mental health as well, making sure that everyone is ready to go and be clear is most important thing. Obviously, everything since I did it has changed. So there are a lot of resources out there that can help people. There's a lot of books out there written by surrogates. My lawyer was actually a traditional surrogate. So she used her eggs and delivered a baby for a couple. Yeah, she's amazing. So I would highly recommend doing a lot of reading about, their stories and stuff. I'm not a book writer by any means, but there are some beautiful books out there. Preparing your children for it as well, if they're old enough to understand. I think that's really important to make sure that they're aware. Well, I also had, my son was in prep when I gave birth, so I had to let the teachers know and let all the parents know that, this is happening. So when I come to school and I don't have a belly anymore and I don't have a baby, to not freak out.
Yeah.
And to not, just to be understanding, basically.
Yeah, there's so much to consider.
I just remembered there was one more question that I didn't ask. How did you deal with your postpartum recovery without the baby?
Oh, postpartum, my milk didn't come in very well for both my kids. So I thought, this will be fine. I won't have any issues. And so while I was still in hospital, the doctor said, do you want any tablets to stop your milk coming in? I'm like, no, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, get home, fast forward about 3 days later, I was in so much pain. I smelt like cabbage soup because cabbages help.
Cabbage leaves.
Yes, cabbage leaves help kind of the pain in your breast when your milk comes in. Again, I still didn't feel it, but it was very uncomfortable after a while.
Yeah.
But it passed pretty quickly. 2 weeks after I had the baby, my dog died, so I was probably more focused on that.
Yeah.
A bit preoccupied.
Yeah. And then plus with the kids and stuff and moving house. So it was
all happening.
It was all happening.
At the time.
Wow.
Oh
Yeah.
If you don't mind, would you be able to share some of those resources, books that you liked, and I can put them in the show notes for anyone that's interested, and we
Absolutely.
could pop some links on the Instagram.
Absolutely,
I think that there's going to be a lot of people out there that have a lot more questions that they might be able to answer through some of those links.
Yeah. If there's any, I don't know if there's any more surrogacy conventions or anything out there, definitely go along, check them out. Just when you go there, I was told not to tell everyone that you're a surrogate because intended parents kind of latch onto you and hope that you'll become their surrogate.
Because they're looking for surrogates. At the conference. Yeah, right.
So if you are a surrogate, just go there and say,
I've got
someone who's interested, or I've got an intended parent already, or something like that. But it is good to just get as much information as you can.
Yeah.
Because it's worth having that knowledge before you jump into it.
Yeah.
100%.
Wow. I can't thank you enough for coming on here. This is
very cool.
Very cool. You're incredible.
I can't believe that you think this is not that interesting.
This is one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had in my life.
That's how I felt the first time she told me.
I have goosebumps. I just think, as someone who has 3 kids and someone who has struggled to fall pregnant, Kev and I were looking into adoption at one stage.
Yeah.
And it was such a process. And so I just the gratitude that those intended parents must feel is just incredible.
Oh.
You're amazing.
Are you crying again?
No, I'm not going to cry because you keep paying me out for crying. But I just think...
Alex is like, I never cry, and then proceeds
cry.
to cry every week.
I don't cry every week. I've cried 3 times. But I just think it's just amazing. And I feel for the intended parents as well because that would have been a huge
They are absolutely
thing for
beautiful
them as
parents.
well.
Can you just imagine how they felt when they got the message back from you being like obviously they wouldn't have wanted to get their hopes up, but from you being like, yeah, I'm kind of interested.
Yeah,
It would have felt like winning the lotto.
But also how brave of them to do that.
I know, like
absolutely.
shoot your shot.
Yeah.
Just go for it. Like when you want a baby, I feel like at that point you're willing to do anything.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's very courageous
Yeah, it
to
is very.
put yourself out there and be so vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And you can just tell to even take the risk to be able to do that, and the amount of money that they would have had to save and the sacrifices that they're willing to make. Like you can just tell that they're going to be the most incredible parents.
Oh, they are. They really are. He is the most beautiful child. He's just absolutely divine.
Yeah.
They send me photos of like things that he's written. He's only 5 and he's written like letters and stuff, and he's just an absolute sweetheart.
And I bet like a very, very, very loved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very, yeah.
100%. I feel like I've had goosebumps through this
I know.
entire conversation.
Thank you. Wow.
You.
Thank you, Jacinta, for coming onto the podcast and sharing your amazing story with us. I think even if surrogacy isn't something that you're looking into, this has just been an unbelievably eye-opening conversation. So thank you for being so honest with us and generous, like just in general, with everything you did and with your story. So thank you.
If you have an interesting story or you know someone with an interesting story that you think we should share on the podcast, please send us some information via Instagram Messenger.
And if you really enjoyed this episode, just share it with someone that you think
We'll enjoy it too.
will enjoy it too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.